Lesson 29A, Polynomial Division. In this lesson, we're going to go over long division and a new part of division called synthetic division. Okay, so to review long division and some words, I have this first slide. So imagine I asked you to take 2,789 and divide it by 23. So there's some words that are used. We have the dividend is what you started with. You have the divisor is what you're dividing by. And then you have your quotient, which is what you started with, or what you multiply with your divisor to get your dividend. Okay, so how you do this is you say, does 2 go into 23? And the answer is no, so you put a 0 there. Then you ask yourself, does 27, can 23 go into 27? The answer is yes, it can. How many times? 1 time. So 1 times 23, remember we're going to multiply the outsides. 1 times 23 is 23. And this is where Weissmiller picks up her red pen and says minus this thing. And hopefully you agree we're going to get the number of 4. I'm going to carry down the 8. And I ask myself, how many times does 23, the divisor, go into 48? Well, that's 2 times. So 2 times 23 is 46. Again, get your red pen, subtract away the whole thing there, and then you're left with the number of, again, 2 in this case. Bring down the 9, so we have 29. So how many times does 23 go into 29? That's 1 time, so 1 times 23 is 23. Again, get your red pen, subtract away 23, and you're left with this great number of 6. That means at the end, this statement at the end is called your remainder. Don't forget this word too. This is your remainder. And your final answer of the statement of what they asked for. So they asked for 2,789 was divided by 23. To get that, you're going to get 121 plus 6 over 23. That's your final answer. Things to focus on, and this is for your Delta Math quiz and give you some insight. You have to put plus the remainder, even if the remainder had been negative. And that's just something coming up in our polynomial stuff. So please make sure anytime you have a remainder, you're adding the remainder of the statement. Okay, so let's do a polynomial division question. Polynomial division is going to have letters in it like x's. So imagine I asked you to take 2x cubed plus 7x squared plus 8x plus 9, and I wanted you to divide that by 2x plus 3. I may have written it like this on your homework. It could look something like this. And then I divide that by 2x plus 3. That's also how it could look. So just know if it looks like that, you can set up your long division like this. Similarly to what we just did, you're going to ask yourself, how many times does 2x go into 2x cubed? Well, if you think about it, we're going to take the outsides and still multiply. So I'm going to put my multiplication symbol out here and get my red pen ready. But 2x can go into 2x cubed x squared number of times. So I'm going to take x squared, now multiply both of those terms to get 2x cubed plus 3x squared. I'm going to erase that multiplication of that so you don't get too confused. But we're going to minus the whole thing. Notice why I do a red pen now. With numbers, it was a little easier, but with letters, it kind of is helpful to understand we're subtracting away the whole thing. So here we have 2x cubed minus 2x cubed gives you no x cubes. We have 7x squared minus 3x squared gives you 4x squared. From here, you ask yourself, how many times does 2x, the outside number, how many times does 2x go into 4x squared? Well, that's going to be a positive 2x times. Positive 2x, now distribute that guy. So we're going to think this guy has to come through to those two numbers now again. So 2x times 2x makes 4x squared. I forgot to carry down my second term, but I can still distribute. 2x times 3 makes positive 6x, and I'm going to bring down that positive 8x that I had. From here, I'm going to get my red pen, and instead of doing minus the quantity of, I'm just going to change all the symbols to negative symbols because that helps my brain. You do whatever method you feel best. If you like the one up top, minus the parentheses set, or minus in red. From here, subtract away what you have. So 4x squared minus 4x squared gives you no x squareds. 8x minus 6x gives you 2x. This time, don't forget to carry down what you have still in the original, and that's plus 9. From here, you ask yourself again, how many times does 2x, that outside factor, go into 2x? Well, in this case, one time. 1 times 2x is 2x. 1 times 3 is positive 3. Take your red pen, subtract away what you have on the calculation, and then your final answer, you're left with 2x minus 2x is nothing. 9 minus 3 is 6. So final answer of this division problem is x squared plus 2x plus 1 plus 6 over 2x plus 3. Okie dokie. That is your first polynomial division problem that we've done. Okay, so let's do another one. Imagine I have set up for you 13x minus 10x squared plus 2x cubed plus 17. And I'm asking you to divide that by x minus 3. First and foremost, we got to notice that the numerator of this fraction, also known as the dividend, is not in standard form. We don't have our leading highest degree first in descending order. So we want to rearrange it. So when I set up my long division, I'm going to do 2x cubed. Then I'm going to ask myself, is there an x squared term? Yes, okay, it's negative 10x squared. If there wasn't, I'd put a 0 as a placeholder. Then I'm going to ask, is there an x term? Yes, that's positive 13x. And then is there a numerical term without an x? That's plus 17. From here, I notice I'm dividing it by x minus 3. So I'm going to put x minus 3 on the outside. That's my divisor. And then again, I start my process. So I'm going to change colors so we know what color we're multiplying with. So we have on the outside, we're asking ourselves the question, what times x is 2x cubed? Well, that's 2x squared. 2x squared times, now these two terms, is going to give me 2x cubed minus 6x squared. From here, I'm going to use my red pen to change symbols. So I minus this guy, but now I'm going to minus a minus, which means I'm going to plus that guy. Okay, what's left, again, I have, in this case, 2x cubed minus 2x cubed is no x cubes. Negative 10x squared plus 6x squared is negative 4x squared. I'm going to carry down my 13x. And then from here, I'm going to go back and say, okay, so what times x gives me negative 4x squared? Well, in that case, it'd be negative 4x. Now I'm going to multiply negative 4x times each of these statements over here. So negative 4x times x, and then negative 4x times negative 3. And I get negative 4x squareds plus 12x's. Again, I'm going to grab my red pen. I'm going to change the symbols. The first one now becomes a positive. The second one becomes a negative. And then I'm going to combine those terms. So in this case, I have Negative 4x squared plus 4x squared gives me no x squareds. Positive 13x minus 12x gives me x. And then I'm going to carry down again, that's 17. Okay, so last thing we got to do is say how many times does x go into x? Well, that's plus 1 time. Now I'm going to take that 1 and again distribute it through that statement. So 1 times x and 1 times negative 3. So I'm going to get x minus 3. Get your red pen, change symbols. So we now have minus, we now have plus, and then from here, combine like terms. So we have x minus x is nothing, but we have 17 plus 3 is 20. So what is your final answer for this problem? Well, right now we have 2x squared minus 4x plus 1 plus 20 over x minus 3. And that'd be your final answer. Okie dokie. That's polynomial long division. Imagine I taught you a new one called synthetic division. Doesn't mean it's make-believe. It does not. Synthetic division is a really cool thing. You can do it with linear functions, so we'll go over that. But here is the setup for synthetic division. So, synthetic division. What we do is we set up this cool little L, but really long L, and we take the coefficients of the standard form of each. So we take the coefficients of the dividend and we're going to put them inside at the top row. So we want this to be 2 rows here, 1, 2. And what we're going to do is put, again, the coefficients of dividend. It has to be in standard form from descending order in power. Again, if there wasn't something there, we would put a 0 as a placeholder, but in our case, we didn't have that happen, so let's go. We have 2x cubed. If you think about it, the x cubed is up here. You don't need to write the red, I'm just showing it. Then we have negative 10, and again, that would be the x squared term. Then we had positive 13, that would be the x term. And then we had 17, which is the x to the 0 term, also known as just the numbers. From here, the outside, so what goes on the outside, our divisor, is going to be the 0 of that linear factor. So the 0 of the linear factor. So if I think about that, I'm going to go over here and say the linear factor was x minus 3. But if I equal that to 0, x would have been 3. So the 0 that goes here is 3. Okay, now, we like synthetic division because you don't have to deal with minusing. Instead, you deal with adding. So on the outside, we're still going to multiply, just like we did with regular division. But on the insides, we're going to add. These are going to be add signs. So the first step of synthetic division is you're going to take your value you had and you're going to drop it just like it fell. Like it just fell out of the sky. So the first number 2 falls out of the sky. There it is. Then you're going to take the outside number of 3, the 0, and you're going to multiply that with 2. And you're going to get the number of 6. That goes under negative 10 because that's the next thing you're going to do. You're going to now take negative 10 and add it with 6. Hopefully you agree when you do that, you get negative 4. Now you take your outside numbers again, 3, the 0, and negative 4, the number we're talking about. We're going to multiply those. When you multiply 3 and negative 4, you get negative 12. Now you're going to add together your 13 and your negative 12, and you're going to get 1. And when you get 1, now you talk outside numbers only. So what's 1 times 3? You get this cool number of 3. And then 17 plus 3 gives you this great number of 20. Okay, so here's how your answer gets written. So every time your last number is known as the remainder, this term is going to be the x to the 0 term, and then it goes up in ascending order. So x to the first term, x squared. So your final answer is 2x squared minus 4x plus 1 plus the remainder, which is 20 over x minus 3. Sure enough, that's the same answer we got with our long division, but synthetically. Okay, we're going to try that again. Remember, it's okay if this is confusing at first. It takes some time to get in the hang of it. So, synthetic division is used when you have linear factors as your divisor. So in this case, we like to leave the linear factor where the value in front of x is 1. You can do it when the value is not 1. It's just a little trickier, so I tend to avoid it in long division if I can. In terms of this example, we have 3x cubed minus 5x plus 2 is divided by x minus 1. So we're going to set up our situation. We have our linear factors, so I'm going to say x minus 1 equals 0. To find the 0, you get x is 1, so we know that 1 goes out here on the outside. Then I'm going to set up the coefficients in descending order. So we have 3. Remember, above it, you can think of it like being x cubed above here. Then we have 0x squared, so we're going to put 0 in the x squared column. And then we have we have an x, so we can put negative 5 here. That's in the x column. And then we have a number, which is 2, and we can put that in the x sub 0 column. Okay, on the outside, we're going to multiply some stuff. So I'm going to put a big multiplication symbol to remind me these are the multiply things. And on the inside, we only add after the first term. Remember, the first term is just going to fall like it is. 3 is what goes there. Take the outside number and multiply it by the 0. So we have 3 times 1 gives us 3. Then you add the inside two numbers. 0 plus 3 makes 3. Take that second 3, multiply it by the 1, which is known as the 0. 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 5 plus 3 gives you negative 2. Take the outside of negative 2, multiply it by the 0, which is 1, and you get negative 2. Add the inside two numbers. 2 minus 2 gives you 0. Remember, now we have the fun facts that this is your remainder. This is your x to the 0 term. This is your x to the first term. Last but not least, x squared. So your final answer is 3x squared plus 3x minus 2 plus 0 over x minus 1. Now, think about this. Do you really need to put plus 0 over x minus 1? No, the remainder is nothing, so you don't need to do that. Your final answer is actually 3x squared plus 3x minus 2. Now, fun facts. Because we know that the remainder was 0, so we know, because the remainder was 0, that x minus 1 is a factor of the dividend. Remember, the dividend is 3x cubed minus 5x plus 2. So if you were asked to factor 3x cubed minus 5x plus 2, we know that one of the factors is actually x minus 1. Okay, so then we get to the last problem. The last problem you have is x to the 4th plus 3x cubed minus 9x squared minus 21x plus 8. And I'm dividing that by x squared minus 7. Okay, So in the last slide, we talked about the fact that synthetic division can be used if you have a linear divisor. Well, I see my divisor right now as x squared minus 7. X squared is quadratic, that's not linear, so I cannot use synthetic. I have to use long division in this problem. So let's set up our long division of this problem, and then let's get started. So we know we have x squared. Oh, but there's no x term, so I have to put plus 0 times x minus 7. This is known, again, as a placeholder. I've mentioned this before, so let's write this. This is a placeholder. And if I don't have a term, I use the placeholder for that term. So placeholder for missing terms. Okay, so let's go back to setting up our problem. We know we have x to the 4th plus 3x cubed minus 9x squared minus 21x plus 8. Okay. In this problem, we're going to ask ourselves, again, the outsides are going to multiply. So I'm going to put a multiplication symbol there to remind me. And then I'm going to get my red pen so I have it ready for when I need to subtract. Okay, here we go. What, on the outside, times x squared gives you x to the 4th? Well, that's x squared. So x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. X squared times 0x is going to give you 0x cubed. And x squared times negative 7 is negative 7x squared. I'm going to grab my red pen and change everything I see. So plus becomes minus, plus becomes minus, minus becomes plus, and then I add my like terms. Okay, so what do we get? X to the 4th minus x to the 4th is 0x to the 4th, so we have nothing left. Then we have the fun number of 3x cubed minus 0x cubed gives you 3x cubed, and then we have negative 9x squared plus 7x squared gives you negative 2x squared. I'm going to bring down my placeholder, or my value, of negative 21x, and I do that because my divisor is 3 terms, so I need 3 terms to get it to go back. Okay, so over here, ask yourself, how many times does something, x squared, go into 3x cubed? How many times does x squared go into 3x cubed? Well, that's going to be positive 3x times. So now take 3x and multiply it through your trinomial that's over there on the left. Again, we're taking that, multiplying it to each of those terms over here. And when you do that, you get the value of 3x cubed plus 0x squared, because 3 times 0 is 0, but x squared times x squared is x squared. And then you get minus 21x's. Okie dokie. I'm going to grab the red pen, change the symbols of what I have. I have a positive 3x cubed, so that's going to go negative. I have a positive 0, that's going to go negative. And I have a negative 21x, that's going to go positive. From here, we combine like terms, and we get 3x cubed minus 3x cubed is no x cubes. Negative 2x squared minus 0x squared is still negative 2x squared. Negative 21x plus 21x is going to give you plus 0x. And then I'm going to bring down the 8 that I have, so I have plus 8. Okay, so back to the question. How many times does x squared go into negative 2x squared? Well, that's going to be negative 2 times. Now I take that negative 2, and again, I'm going to distribute negative 2 to each of those terms on the outside, and then write the products underneath. So I have negative 2 times x squared is negative 2x squared. Negative 2 times 0x is positive or negative 0x, because it doesn't matter. And then negative 2 times negative 7 is positive 14. From here, I'm going to take my red pen, change the symbols. So the negative 2x squared becomes now a positive 2x squared. 0 is 0, negative, that's fine. And then the positive 14 now becomes a negative 14. Then we go to our combined like term step. 2x squared plus minus 2x squared is 0x squared. 0x minus 0x is no x's. And 8 minus 14 is negative 6. So our final answer of this problem is going to be x squared plus 3x minus 2 plus negative 6 over x squared minus 7. Okay, folks, that's the lesson at its finest. I wish you good luck.